I'd like to introduce you to our next keynote speaker, Mr. Dr. Marc Eumann. In the past, he was State Secretary for Federal Affairs, Europe and Media in the State Chancellery of North Rhine-Westphalia. Since April 2018, he's the chairman of the, in German, Landeszentrale für Medien und Kommunikation, the State Media and Communication Center Rhineland-Palatinate. And he's chairman of the Commission for the Protection of Minors in the Media. This is the central supervisory body for the protection of minors in private broadcasting and telemedia. So please welcome Mr. Dr. Marc Eumann. Thank you for being here and taking the time.
Yes, thank you very much for this kind introduction. First of all, I'd like to say hello to all of you, and I hope we will have the opportunity to meet personally, probably not this year, but probably next year, and have a better chance to share views and visions about protection of the minor in the media. Thank you for having me, and firstly I'd like to thank especially Wolfgang and Doris who made all this happen, so a warm thank you to both of them. And secondly, I'd like to add that because you tackled fake news already, I like to focus on the protection of minors in the media. And you've been aware we had some technical problems because we have a very safe environment here in this building. So Zoom is not our favorite platform for sharing videos and audio files, but I hope it works, and I hope it works now that you will see some charts. It works fine. So please, the second one, and you see, then I'd like to talk about 4 points. Very briefly, some information about the KJM. Secondly, examples of breaches, current issues and achievements. And then I like thirdly to focus really on the technical protection of minors in the media. I think this is a very big point. And fourthly, the future of the protection of minors in the media as a kind of outview. I'd like to start with the information about the KGM. You can go over to the 4th slide. General information. We've been set up in the early 2000s as the first body uniting the supervision of the provisions for the protection of minors. And as Lena already said, we are focused on commercial broadcasting and in telemedia. We are not focusing on public broadcasting. They have their own regulatory body. We act for the 14 German media authorities. You've already learned that we have a federal system in Germany. We have 16 states, and within these 16 states we have 14 media authorities who tackle with licensees, overviewing and media literacy, and of course protection of the minor. The next slide, please. And you see now it's not an easy system we are talking about because we have different competencies on different levels. The composition and the structure of the KJM you see here. We have 12 members, 2 from the federal authorities. We have 6 members from the media authorities, and we have 4 members of the Supreme State Youth Authorities. So this is mixed together in our body, and we were supported by a Jugendschutznet who mainly deals with deleting illegal content. They have priority access to the big networks, and we cooperate with a BPJM on the federal state level, the indexing authority in Germany. And you saw on the slide that we are working very closely with self-regulation bodies. We have a very specific system of regulated self-regulation. That means we have 4 different self-regulation organizations. I just mentioned 2 because that's very easy to see. The FSF is dealing with broadcasting on television side, and the FSK comes from the old-fashioned cinema. And yes, if you have questions, do not hesitate to bring your question directly in a debate and discussion. Otherwise, we have time at the end to deal with that. You see, what they're doing is they examine and rate content of programs on behalf of the members. They give their members quite good advices in the question of use protections. And this is why we talk about self-regulation. They are financed by membership fees. Next slide, please. And here you see just a few examples of our competencies in different fields. What I'm focusing on is I'm really keen on certifying organizations of voluntary self-regulation, because the ocean of the digital world is so wide and broad and deep that laws alone couldn't tackle with the situation. And so my focus is especially on self-regulation. And the next thing I really like to support in my doing is developing criteria for technical systems. I come to that afterwards. Next slide, please. And now I'll give you some examples of what they're doing. Please be aware there are some pictures that might disturb your feelings. This is one. Please go ahead. And please go ahead. Just to give you some impression what we are dealing with, and what we are facing, what the challenges are. You see here, we have rapid technological development. We have mobile devices that parents cannot monitor 24/7. We have international content service providers. We have to look abroad what's going on. We have the challenge of anonymity in the internet. We see hate speech. You already tackled that. And what's really key is that regulation does not reflect technological reality. And so next slide, please. What's our role in this game? What we're trying to do, we encourage as we support and really accompanies the development of technical measures. We have currently over 670 technical measures are positive rated. So what we do, a company comes with a system to us, and we look closely to it, and then we said, oh, that's good, it really works. So we do it with Nintendo, just to mention Nintendo. We do it with Sky, we do it with Magenta TV, with really a big and huge companies here having their market share in Germany. And of course, as I told already before, we have continuously exchange with providers and organizations of voluntary self-regulation, because, well, they know really better what's going on than we do. And so a very continuously exchange is really important. for us to understand what's going on and to see what we can do to protect minors. Achievements part 2. Just to give you some figures, I'm not very proud of figures because, well, as I said before, the ocean is wide and deep. We have been decided on over 1,000 broadcasting cases, 2,200 telemeter cases, and almost 7,000 breaches in the internet in the last year alone. So you see, there's a lot to do, and there's a lot of more to do in future times. And one of our big challenges is to enforce law across borders. That's not easy within the European Union. It's really hard if we cross over EU borders. We just have lately achievement by a provider in Israel. This was dealing with a game app here, very, very popular in Germany. And we succeeded that they changed some of their some of part of the games to protect minors. And now we have a very, very big issue with cyber providers of pornography. To tell you this briefly, pornography is legal in Germany, but you have to be over 18. So providers have to secure that their content is not available for under 18s. This is with very popular providers not the case. And so we are now tackling with these providers. And we've just opened a case against Twitter because of providing pornography content to minors. Next slide, please. And as I said before, this is really one of my key issues, the technical protection of minors in the media. I think we are now living in a world there's no solution like one size fits all, because everything is very different. Every system has its own ecosystem, and I think the best is to look into every single ecosystem to provide technical measures. So my first key is to look at the providers themselves. Providers of content that may harm children or adolescents are obliged to implement technical measures. You can already read this by yourself. So this is really a big issue, and we have some measures to do this: time restriction, technical means, and when it comes to relatively illegal content, that means, for example, pornography. It's legal for over 18. It's illegal for under 18. That the providers can set up closed user groups with age verification systems. During our last session, we just already gave green light for 2 new age verification systems in Germany. So there's now a very huge range of these systems available, and you don't have a very good argument to say, well, it's too complicated. Your user likes to be anonymous. We have already solutions for all these kinds of questions that were raised. So I'm very focused on these age verification systems. Next slide, please. Some of them I've already mentioned before. When it comes to technical access barriers, software that reads out age labels implemented in websites, and so on. Age verifications, I've spent a few words before. And comprehensive concept, that means, well, when you're in an ecosystem of one provider, then you can be safe even as a minor. and as I said before, over 70 technical measures positively rated by the KJM in the last months and years. Now make a short upside kick to measures against hate speech. What we're doing here in Rhineland-Palatinate. Next slide, please. Next slide, that's fine. We launched a campaign called Verfolgen und Löschen. That means we like to not just delete harmful content, we want to follow the one who's responsible. So Verfolgen und Löschen are both part of the same medal, and our aim is to protect freedom of speech, because we see in more and more discussion on the net that people feel not very comfortable in an environment where hate speech is part of the game. And to protect the freedom of speech of the one who are feeling uncomfortable, we launched our campaign Verfolgen und Löschen. And because we are a media authority, our focus is on journalists, on people who works in the media. From our point of view, we are focusing on local and regional media companies, and we are lucky to have two large public broadcasters here in Rhineland-Palatinate. We have the ZDF, Europe's biggest television public broadcaster, and we have the SWR, the regional public broadcaster, and they are also part of our network. And most of the cases we are dealing with are coming from ZDF with a nationwide coverage here in Germany and some part of the European Union as well. So it's a cooperation between the media companies, the media authority, and the law enforcement agencies, because our aim is to have easy and efficient reporting channels. Journalists are always in a hurry. They don't have much time to prosecute and to document. And so we try to make it very, very smooth for them to bring the cases up to court. We started this campaign last year. A bit is stopped during Corona times, because it's very important to discuss cases, because we like to protect freedom of speech. It's not very easy to tackle with these questions. Is this freedom of speech, or is it something illegal and really harmful? So come back to my last point, the future of the protection of minors in the media. Next slide, please. What I'm trying to implement is the development of new technical measures, especially when it comes to identification of content. I said before, where we're talking about millions of pictures, millions, billions of videos coming to our screens, and no human being can able to watch it all. So we have to build on artificial intelligence, and what we see from our first experience, that they're very good, not tackling with speech, of course, but tackling with pictures and videos. The one I showed you very briefly at the beginning of my presentation, you have a very good quota in recognizing harmful pictures and videos via artificial intelligence. The next bullet is very important as well. The one who makes the content and the one who brings the content into light, I'm talking about host and access providers, they they have to be more responsible what's going on. You've already been aware of the debates in the US about fake news and tackling with fake news on Facebook and Twitter and so on. And I think there must be more responsibility. And next thing, and that's where we come into onto the stage, effective law enforcement in the internet. It's not easy. It's very complicated. It takes a lot of time, but you have to do it. That's why we're doing it with Cypriotis providers, content. It's not easy to deal with them, but I think there's really no alternative. We have to enforce our law. Next slide, please. That comes to the point that we as media authorities must act internationally and comprehensively. We know we have different types of youth protection law in different countries within the EU. And when it comes to other parts of the world, it's becoming more and more complicated. But to protect minors is not a thing we can do or do not. We have to do it, and so we have to be strong to enforce effective law. Next bullet is regulation must be geared to children's behavior. So it's not useful to have a system that is very good on a PC through Microsoft when every child above the age of 7 is on a mobile device in social media, and there's not sufficient protection on these services for that child or children at all. And big point, because we're dealing, probably you know that the Media Authority in Rhine-Palatinate is also responsible for the ClickSafe and the Safer Internet Day in Germany, the ClickSafe project and the Safer Internet Day. Protection of minors into the media and media literacy must be combined. They must go hand in hand. That's the reason why we're dealing with both of them. So this was a very brief and roughly overview of what we're doing within the KGM and what's a challenging, which lies ahead. And now I'm very interested to listen to your questions and to your comments. So thank you for joining me so far. And I've seen there are some questions already, but probably Lena will lead me through it.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Dr. Eumann, for your keynote speech. This was very interesting, and indeed there are already several questions. So maybe let's start with the first one. It's from also our co-organizer and keynote speaker, Mrs. Katarina Sokolova from the Institute of Journalism in Kiev. She says, recently there was a petition created against Pornhub after the girl was kidnapped and raped to film the videos. Pornhub confirmed that 5% of content is rape, including minors. What is the policy in Germany considering this resource?
I'm not allowed to name the companies we are now dealing in Cyprus, but you probably can imagine the name was already mentioned. So what we're trying to do in Germany is what I said before. Pornography is not legal. It's not illegal in Germany if you're over 18. But the access to these contents is very easy for minors in Germany as all over the world. And so we enforce these companies to use, for example, a age verification system to protect minors. That's what we're now actually doing with companies like the one you mentioned.
Thank you very much for this answer.
Thank you for the answer.
So there's another two questions from our participant Lena. She says the first one is, several years ago there was a dangerous movement, play Blue Whale, which made propaganda of suicide among youth. I know that it was popular in Russia, Ukraine, and other CIS countries. So how was it represented in Germany? First one.
Yes, first one, and a very good one. I mentioned already ClickSafe, and ClickSafe dealt with its problems, and what ClickSafe is dealing, it dealt with Blue Whale. And if we see these phenomenons, we have Jugendschutznet and ClickSafe, and they describe the phenomenon, and they explain to minors and to parents and to teachers how to tackle with these phenomena in the environment. So this is the part where the media literacy competence of the media authorities comes in.
Thank you. There's a second question from Lena. What is your favorite fake news about the coronavirus? And she says, thank you.
To be honest, I try to avoid fake news in my media consumption. But one of the early beginning in Corona times was that Greta invented the Corona because she wants to save our environment. This one was a good one.
Okay. Does anyone else want to share their favorite conspiracy theory?
No, Lena, if I can ask one more question
Sure.
and discuss one more topic that I just remembered.
This is Mrs. Katerina Sokolova.
Yeah, yes, I'm Katerina Sokolova, but I'm connecting from the smartphone, so I'm sorry that I don't have video. The question is about the actually minors who you mentioned the hate speech in the social networks. And now it's getting more and more popular to cyberbully people online. And I talked about it several days ago. How is it regulated, if it is regulated in Germany? And how do you protect the minors from being cyberbullied and maybe even, I don't know, like when someone makes the minors do something, you know, because it was popular in Ukraine in some period. I agree with Lena, who asked the question before. So what is the policy in Germany? And thank you very much for your presentation. I think it was very informative.
Okay, thank you for that. And it's a very, very good question. And, you know, this is really the biggest challenge we face, because the approaches from the internet are so different. You see self-harm pictures, you see sorry for not finding the right English impressions, pictures with abuse of children and abuse of animals and so on, mixed on together. And when it comes to cyberbullying, we know from a study we're doing now over 20 years, it's called the GYM-Studie, that means use in the media. We're doing this together with our colleagues in Baden-Württemberg and with the SWR. Since 20 years, we know through this studies, and we launched a study for children roughly 10 years ago. So with both studies, which comes annually, we know very very exactly how children behave in the internet. And as you already mentioned in your question, 1/3 of female children are confronted with content they never intended to look for. So we are talking to the companies and say, you have to protect your users. And the best is that you try to avoid the risk through interactions. There must be safety by design. If you enter a network, there's no one from outside who can approach you. There's no one from outside who can befriend you. So we have really tackled on the safety by design issue. And because every platform is so different, as I said before, there's no solution like one size fits all. So you have to approach every phenomenon for itself, and you have to find solutions on any specific platform to protect minors. And that's what we're doing. And as I said before, quite successfully, because we have now, I said this figure before, 70 AVS age verification systems here in Germany. And most of them on really popular platforms like Nintendo, very important when it comes to games in Germany. And they have a green-rated minor protection scheme on their platform, for the platform. And I think that's, from my point of view, the most successful way to tackle these things.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And no doubt about, you can have my presentation and spread it for your...
This would be wonderful, because we are always writing one daily email with the information from the keynote speaker.
Yeah. And do not hesitate, well, if you don't have now questions, do not hesitate to contact me via email or via Wolfgang. He will find his way to me.
Yeah, I'm sure about that. So thank you very much for your time, for your words, Mr. Dr. Eumann.